Have you ever felt like no matter what you're doing, it's just taking too damn long? And the longer it takes, the more you start wondering if you're doing something wrong. Welcome back. This is day 22 of your Money Mindset Reset. Yesterday, we talked about comparison and how it makes you feel like everyone else is further ahead. Today, we're talking about what that feeling makes you do. Because feeling behind doesn't just sit there, it creates urgency. And urgency pushes you to rush. And rushing, more often than not, takes you off course. So today, we're talking about patience, but not the passive wait and see kind, the intentional kind, the kind that's actually one of the most underrated strategies in any financial journey. When I started my signing agent business, the early days felt genuinely slow because part of that was due to confidence, and I was still figuring out what I was doing and how to do it well. But then COVID hit, and with it came a dramatic shift in the economy and interest rates that sent demand for loan closings absolutely through the roof. Suddenly, there was more work than I could keep up with. Companies that normally would have been selective about who they were giving opportunities to were now open to new signers just because they needed to meet the volume of the demand. And what might have taken years to build in a normal market happened quickly. And that sounds like success, right? But here's the part that doesn't get talked about. I was scrambling, meeting demand, yes, but not learning how to actually run a business. I wasn't building systems. I wasn't developing marketing. I wasn't thinking strategically about what I was creating. I was just reacting to the demand I wasn't building. And then when the market eventually shifted back, when rates changed and volume dropped, I was left having built income, but not infrastructure. The things that actually sustain a business long term were the things that I had been too busy to learn when things were booming. Slow growth, it turns out, often teaches you things that fast growth just skips entirely. And what you skip in the building phase tends to show up later as this gap that you've got to go back and fill in. There's a version of success that comes from timing and circumstances, and a version that comes from genuine skill and systems. The first one can disappear when conditions change. The second one doesn't. Building slowly enough to actually learn the fundamentals, it's not a disadvantage. It's how you build something that lasts. Or here's what happens to me when things start to feel like it's just taking too long. I dig in, not patiently, but kind of aggressively. I go into research mode. I'm reading everything. I'm finding out every option. I'm trying to think my way out of that to a faster answer. And what starts as a focused search very quickly becomes this spiral. Because research reveals options, and then options invite second guessing, and second guessing invites the urge to pivot, to try something else, to find the faster path. And I've had to learn, not once, but repeatedly, that the urge to pivot when something feels slow is almost always premature. Because most things that work don't work immediately. And most people who succeed are the ones who stayed when it would have been so much easier and so much more comfortable to quit. I've come to believe that success is often less about being the best and more about being the one who outlasts, who keeps showing up past the point where other people stop. And trust me, that is not glamorous. It doesn't make for a good highlight reel, but it's what actually produces results over time. The research spiral is a specific kind of avoidance. It feels like productivity because it looks like effort. But when it leads to constant pivoting rather than committed action, it's actually a way of not having to sit with the discomfort of slow progress. And recognizing that difference matters. And underneath all of it is the overthinking. I am, by nature, someone who questions everything. And I mean literally everything. Did I think this through completely? Did I miss an option? Is my work ethic actually as strong as I believe it is? And I know in my soul that I work harder than most people. But I still question it. Did I make the right call? Should I have done something differently? Overthinking doesn't speed things up. It pulls you out of momentum at exactly the moment you need to stay in it. It's a tax on progress. Time and energy spent relitigating decisions that are already made, instead of moving forward on the one that's actually right in front of you. So what I've learned to do imperfectly, but better, is notice when I'm overthinking versus when I'm genuinely problem solving. They feel similar from the inside, but one produces action and the other produces just more questions. When things start to feel like they're taking too long, what's your first instinct? Do you dig in or do you spiral into research? Do you want to just quit and pivot to something else? Or is it something else entirely? I'd love to know that I'm not the only one who has a whole process around impatience. Here's what I didn't recognize for a while. Progress was happening, just not in the ways I was measuring it. It showed up at the closing table. I'd be there for a routine appointment and someone would mention something, a family situation, a concern about a property, something they were thinking about doing. And I'd realize I actually had something useful to offer. Not always about the closing itself, but about the bigger picture. Things like making sure their credit was frozen and protected, encouraging someone who mentioned a family member declining in health to get estate planning done now, while that person could still fully participate, rather than waiting until capacity becomes an issue. I was reminding people to check their beneficiaries and check them on all of their accounts and that they are properly named, not just the ones that they think about. And that last one is personal for me. When my dad passed, we thought we had everything handled, and we still ran into problems because there were accounts that hadn't been updated, details that had been overlooked in a moment of crisis, the kind of thing that's completely fixable before the fact and incredibly frustrating and difficult after it. Those conversations at the table weren't part of my job, but they were evidence of something very real. The knowledge that I had been quietly accumulating was becoming something that I could actually use to help people. And in my world, that's progress. It didn't just show up on an income statement, though. Progress during a slow season is often invisible to everyone, including yourself. Knowledge accumulating, confidence building, connections forming, and perspective deepening, well, none of that shows up as some sort of milestone, but all of it matters. And then there's the question underneath all of it: what am I actually building toward? Now, I'll be honest, I can't fully define enough yet. I'm not sure I'll know it clearly until I'm closer to it, but I know what it feels like in my head when I imagine it. But it's not a number. It's this kind of freedom, the ability to work when I want to, where I want to, without being on someone else's clock or restricted to a specific geographic location. My closing work requires me to be physically present in my home state, and that is a real constraint on the kind of life that I'm working toward. Eventually, I want to work my way out of that into something that challenges my mind and keeps me engaged, but isn't tied to a specific place. I like staying busy. I like having my mind challenged, but I don't want to trade the best years of my health and energy for a schedule I don't control. And then finally get freedom when I'm too depleted to use it. That's the version of the future I'm trying to avoid building. And knowing that even without a precise number attached to it is what patience is built on, not vague hope. A specific enough picture of what you're moving toward that it's worth staying in when the progress is so slow. Clarity about what you're building toward is what makes patience possible. Without it, slow progress just feels like failure. With it, slow progress feels like exactly what it is: the normal pace of building something real. Patience in a financial context isn't waiting. It isn't sitting still and hoping things improve. It's choosing to keep building when the results aren't visible yet. It's trusting the process long enough for compound effects. Those effects can be knowledge, skill, consistency, all to actually show up. And it's resisting the urge and the urgency that comparison and discomfort create. The urge to pivot before something has had time to work, to chase a faster path before understanding why the current one feels slow. Rushing doesn't get you there faster. Most of the time, it just takes you somewhere else entirely. So we have 4 prompts for our journal exercise today. First, I want you to ask yourself, where do I feel like things are taking too long right now? Be specific, like a financial goal, a business effort, a savings target, a career move. Second, what is that feeling making me want to do? Do you want to quit? Do you want to pivot? Do you want to research 100 other options? Just name it honestly. Third, what might actually be building right now that I can't see yet? Is it knowledge, confidence, connections, clarity? What's accumulating, even if it's not measurable? And fourth, what does my version of enough start to look like? Not a perfect answer, just a general direction. What are you building toward? And is it specific enough to be worth being patient for? Because clarity about where you're going is what makes patience feel like a strategy instead of a consolation prize. You're not behind. You're building something that takes time. And the things worth building almost always do. The slow seasons are often where the most important work happens, the learning, the solidifying, the accumulation of something that will actually hold when the conditions get harder. Stay in it, not passively, but intentionally. You have more control than you think. You've got this. I'll see you tomorrow for day 23, where we talk about empowering money decisions, specifically how to make financial choices from a place of clarity rather than fear, rather than urgency or someone else's opinion. I'll see you then.